So we're back with the YouTube Ads Agency Scaling series with Robin right here. So Robin's got a question about hiring and systems. So let's get right into it. Robin, what do you want to ask me today?
Yeah, so after I started getting my first clients and making some revenue, I was really curious, like, okay, when do you start hiring your first employee and what is the key hire? And the second thing is, how do you actually systemize things or automate things so that your employee can do their job efficiently, right? So, yeah.
Cool, so that's a great question. Now, there's a few parts of this, right? The first part of this is this depends on you, because some people are gonna have different skill sets and different strengths than other people. So some people might be really good at sales, other people might be really good at operations, other people might be really good at running the ads. So each agency owner is different, right? And when you're scaling an agency, you really have to be aware of your weak points and strong points, and you want to delegate out your weak points and then focus on your strong points. But I would say that generally the first person anybody should hire is some sort of personal assistant that's a business assistant, right? A virtual assistant. So like you said, one of the key things when you're doing YouTube ads or running a YouTube ad agency is uploading ads onto YouTube. That can take a lot of time. So having somebody who can do that, who can kind of basically help you manage let's say client assets and help organize them, somebody who can perhaps help you with organizing your calendar, those kind of basic tasks that are around $5 to $7 an hour, that's like a good hire, right? A good virtual assistant who can help out with those basic tasks. Now, once you get into higher level, right? Let's say you get to 10K a month, that's where you should start looking at hiring your first junior media buyer. And they don't have to be full-time. They could be part-time. They could work for you for 5 to 10 hours a week. They could help you with a few accounts. And that's what I did. That's actually how I met my business partner, Neil, because we were running these ad accounts, these Facebook ad accounts and YouTube ad accounts. And I essentially had him help me out with basically managing the accounts, because we'd had standard operating procedures for the account. We'd say, okay, we know this ad, we should pause this when X, and he would follow those rules. And it helped a lot because it took a lot of time and he was able to do a lot of the pausing and optimization side, while I could focus more on the reporting, the high-level strategy, and so on. And then the junior media buyer can do things like set up new campaigns, right? Like you give them the information. You say, hey, these are the 10 audiences I want to test for this creative, and they'll go and set up the campaign. Then running reports, right? Because running a lot of reports is just a very manual process. So you tell them, hey, I want to run a creative report, and they'll do that for you. And then you could also have them do certain things like, let's say, pausing ads that you tell them, hey, 2 to 3 times a day, I want you to go into the ad account, and if any ads have this CPA or higher, just pause them, right? Give them simple rules. And doing those simple tasks, you can supervise them, keep an eye on them, but essentially you're able to keep an eye on them and be able to manage many more accounts, because now you're focused on high-level strategy, you're more focused on the big picture, you're focused on perhaps the creative, the scripting, really getting that down, versus being in the weeds of, let's say, hey, should I pause this ad or not? Because now they're taking care of all of the kind of the lower level ad buying work, right? So that's kind of the job of a junior media buyer. Now from there, I believe some of our key hires where we hired basically a media buyer who was also a copywriter. So usually as you start an agency, you're gonna hire people who fill 2 roles. So media buyer who was a copywriter eventually turned into our first account manager. And so those are a few things, right? You might have a copywriting freelancer, or you might have somebody who's doing copywriting but also media buying at the same time. You can find people who usually have good skill sets. And usually around the 20K a month to 30K a month mark is where you should have at least 1 full-time person, maybe a couple of part-time contractors, right? So maybe a part-time assistant / project manager who's just making sure things are organized. Having a full-time media buyer, part-time copywriter, a part-time editor is what you should be at around 20K a month. Now, as you start scaling from there, you're gonna eventually need to hire your first operations person. So an operations person, their job is to organize your business, right? Now, obviously some of you might be good at operations naturally, in which case you might actually hire somebody who's better at sales and marketing to help you with that side of the business. But for me, it was hiring an operations person that was really, really essential. And that's what really helped us scale our agency, because once we hired our director of operations, who's now a partner in the business, we were able to really scale the business much faster, because now we have standard operating procedures for every part of the business, and the accounts run a lot more smoothly because there's all these checklists that they have to do, right? That the media buyers, that every single day and every single week, there's certain things they have to do, and they have to check it off in the spreadsheet. And if they don't do it, then our operations person gets notified by our project manager. It's like a whole system, right? Like it's essentially, at this point, we got like a couple people working on that. So that's another key role. And yeah, after that, I think salesperson, right? Once you start hitting 80 to 100K a month with your agency, you'll probably need a part-time salesperson at the very least, or an SDR, right? So at that point, you start building out a sales capability where you have a SDR who perhaps messages people or follows up with old leads, or a salesperson who does the qualification call, and maybe you do the final call, right? So that's another hire over there.
Yeah, maybe for the people who don't know what the SDR is.
Sales development rep is basically somebody who essentially sets up appointments and gets you leads, right? So they might be having conversations on Facebook, they might be messaging people on LinkedIn, they might be doing cold email. Their whole job is to follow up with people, or even old leads that you had. Maybe they'll follow up and send them messages and be like, hey, we haven't heard from you in a while. Did you need any YouTube ads, etc.
Makes sense. I think that answers my question.
Awesome. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. Smash the subscribe button and notification bell, because we have more of these videos coming. The next one, we're gonna talk about lead generation for agencies. So I'll see you there.